Hello, I'm Eric Smith, and I want to welcome you to a very special episode of the Low Budget Review Show. For anybody who watches my reviews, in the last couple I've been hinting that I was going to do something a little different, and today is the day. I want to talk about the two biggest franchises in science fiction, of course, Star Wars and Star Trek. There are plenty of people who are fans of each. Some people love one more than the other. I'm a big fan of both. And, of course, they are the two biggest franchises in science fiction. I mean, they permeate our culture, aside from the movies, TV shows, video games, board games, card games, toys, clothes, Pez dispensers, comic books, and there's the novels. So I want to talk about the books, since that's my thing. Couple of things. I'm only going to be talking about the original material, original novels. No novelizations. There are hundreds and hundreds of books between Star Wars and Star Trek, and I've barely read a fraction, so this is just from my limited perspective, taking a look at the two, deciding which one I like a little better or not. Maybe they're equal, I don't know yet. And I'm only going to be talking about the adult books, no young adult books, no kids books. So I think that covers everything. So I want to start with a little bit of history for each one, and since Star Trek came first, we'll start with that. And I've got a couple piles of books here, show you some, and I even had to take notes so I could remember everything. So anyway, Star Trek novels. The first one, this is where the notes come in. The first Star Trek novel was Star Trek Mission to Horatius? Not sure how you pronounce it. That was published in 1968, and it was by Mac Reynolds. My information said it was for children. And I know I just said I'm only going to be talking about adult books, but as far as history goes, I thought it was important to mention this one. And I do believe it's the only original novel published during the run of the original series, the first run of the original series. So after that, the next novel and the first adult novel was Spock Must Die, which was published in 1970 and was written by James Blish. And that started the whole run of Star Trek books, adult books anyway, that's been going strong to the present and is still going. Now, of course, there's novels that cover all of the series, the original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. There are novels that take place during the events, the time of the movies. There's even at least one novel, not even sure if it's out yet, that takes place in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek universe. I've read novels in a bunch of the different series. I don't think I've read any Voyager or Enterprise. But mainly I've been focusing on the original series right now. And aside from the TV shows, there's all sorts of other different things. There's New Frontier by Peter David, which I'll get to when I actually get to my review part, get past the history part. But there are crossovers that, like the I want to say Double Helix storyline, which I read, which crossed over between, I think, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, probably. I feel like there was another one too, but I don't know what that would have been unless it was Voyager. But either way, so these events that will cross over between the different series. Things like the Starfleet Corps of Engineers series. A series called The Fall, which has led into Sector 31, which I believe is the Black Ops part of Starfleet, which I'm interested in picking up. There's a new series called Seeker, which follows a couple specific ships of the line, I suppose, in Starfleet. The Dominion War, just all sorts of stuff. I'm going to grab my pile of Star Trek books here, just to give you an idea. Now, my oldest Star Trek book that I have here was originally published sometime 1977 is what I've got here. So this is Planet of Judgment by Joe Haldeman. Just a thin little paperback by Bantam Books. And I have quite a few that kind of fall into this decade, and the covers are nice and simple. Obviously, you've got the Enterprise there. So that's how they kind of started out. I guess I'll just toss them over here. Then, when you got into the 80s and 90s, I suppose, you got into a little more colorful. This is My Enemy, My Ally by Diane Duane. The cover's a little more dynamic. They got very colorful, and they are even numbered. And like I said, this is Diane Duane. A lot of good authors during this particular run of the books. This one is Ishmael by Barbara Hambly. Another big name, and like I said, they're colorful. This is number 18. This is number 23. I have a bunch of these. And I can see there's red and pink and orange and green and purple and brown, and just real colorful, very dynamic covers. And as I said, I'm concentrating on the original series books, but there's a lot of Next Generation stuff coming out with the same kind of look. And they also, within this, there's books that take place, as I said, during the movies. I'm kind of, those are on the back burner for me. I like the stuff that takes place kind of during that 3 years that the original show was on the air, the younger versions of the characters. And you can actually, if you look at some of the covers, just the covers will tell you what era the characters are in because of the uniforms they're wearing. There's, I don't even know how many with those bright covers. And of course, things keep moving on, and now this is one of the more recent. I think this just came out last year, or was it this year? Yeah, 2014. So we're moving on, getting a little more subtle. Still pocket books. This is No Time Like the Past by Greg Cox. And you can actually see you've got Kirk and Seven of Nine. So this is definitely a crossover one. I'll talk a little bit more about this. Well, I guess I can talk about this in the history part. Or should I? No, I'm going to save it. So I'm going to set this within easier reach than the others. So now we've gotten to this point. Still, got the characters and such on the cover, but they don't have the real bright sides. They're not numbered, and it's very specific that this is the original series. And then they have the Mirror Universe books. Sorrows of the Empire by David Mack. with Evil Spock, my favorite. But there are mirror universe stories for original series, I believe Next Generation, maybe some others. I might list them in here, but I do not see them. So, anyway. So like I said, the Star Trek books encompass all sorts of stuff. And like I said, still going strong today. You're still getting books from each of the series. They're adding all sorts of new stuff. So if you're a Star Trek fan, there's a lot coming out. And there's a lot out there to find. I hit Half Price Bookstore a lot. That's where I've been picking up all the older ones, and I'm picking up the newer ones as they come out. So yeah, from, what did I say? 1968 to present, they've been publishing Star Wars books. And I'll get to my thoughts on the books themselves after I go through a little history for Star Wars. Gonna grab my stack of books here. Alright, well, with Star Wars, the very first Star Wars original novel was Splinter of the Mind's Eye by Alan Dean Foster, which I believe came out in 1978. 78's the copyright. I did a little research on here, online. I didn't interview anybody, so take what I report with a grain of salt. But what I read was that this book was written with the potential to be filmed as the second Star Wars movie. If the first one wasn't that successful, this was going to be the low-budget sequel. And it was written with that in mind. What I read said that Alan Dean Foster was told to use a lot of the set pieces and things from the original movie, incorporate them into the story so that they could use existing things when they made the new movie. Excuse me. But of course, I believe Star Wars was pretty successful, and they ended up making some big budget sequels, and this was relegated to just being a book. And let me see. There was something in the introduction. Sorry for that silence there. This edition has a George Lucas introduction. Of course, this was written before The Empire Strikes Back, so there's it's got wonky continuity because there's still some romance between Luke and Leia. Luke and Darth Vader meet and fight in this book. I have not read it since 1978. Maybe this is what I'll read next, because I've been trying to decide what to read next. This will be a nice little something. Probably should have read it before I did this. Anyway, I remember enjoying it. Of course, this was the only real Star Wars fix you could get at the time, aside from just watching the movie over and over. And that was before the home video boom and everything, so you had to go to the theater if you wanted to see it. So that's the first one. The next one, I believe, was in 1991, and that's Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, which was the first of a trilogy. And I think that's really that's the beginning of the non-film growth of the Star Wars universe. Excuse me just a moment. You had the comic books before that. I'm not sure how canon those are, but I think Heir to the Empire is considered canon and really kind of started everything, especially everything that came after this miniseries. Definitely grew from here. Excuse me just a moment. The room's a little dry, and I'm getting parched. So Heir to the Empire, Timothy Zahn. huge bestseller. They've done special anniversary editions of the entire trilogy, I believe. I think there's been a comic book adaptation. I have not read it. Because, well, one of the reasons is because when I started reading the Star Wars books, I wanted books that did not feature the main characters from the movies. Because my thinking was at the time that everything would have to be reset by the end of the book. Because you already had the continuity of the first 3 movies. And then when the prequels came out, you had that continuity that all had to... And the movies are the most canon, I guess, because they're the movies. So I stayed away from anything that starred Luke, Leia, Han, those characters. So what I did pick up was, and really enjoyed, was the X-Wing books. This is Rogue Squadron by Michael A. Stackpole. There are, again, should have counted this and written it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10? 10 X-Wing books so far. And while some of the main characters have cameo appearances, these are mainly either secondary characters given the spotlight or all new characters. I've actually only read probably half of these, maybe a little more than half so far. But X-Wings are my favorite spaceship. I don't know what it is about the X-Wing. I love that ship. And the Rogue Squadron is kind of the covert branch of the rebellion that later becomes more than just a rebellion. So you got things like this. So much like in the Star Trek books, you're going to have books that really focus on the movies, and then books that go out and expand on things. So you've got this. And let's see. The book I have that takes place the farthest in the past is Red Harvest by Joe Schreiber. Now, Joe Schreiber, his first Star Wars book was Death Troopers, which was a zombie book. Star Wars Zombies. And it's got Han Solo and Chewbacca in it. But this book, I'm going to take a quick look here, if I can find it. Okay. Well, I guess I can mention it now since I'm looking. One of the nice things about the Star Wars books is they have a timeline in the front. The center of that timeline is Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. So when you're looking at it, it has all of the books, all of the stories in order, and it will say whether it's before or after Star Wars: A New Hope. So Red Harvest takes place, where'd it go? Basically 3,650 years before Star Wars: A New Hope. So that goes way back, and there are stories that go even further back. But Joe Schreiber, kind of the Star Wars horror author, I guess. So this is a standalone. You've got quite a few standalones, short story anthologies. For a while there, they had Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, things like that. And I'm looking at my Star Wars bookshelf over there. You've got Old Republic stuff that's really telling the history of this universe before the events of Star Wars. And then they're really building the post Return of the Jedi universe. And the very first review that I ever did on YouTube was for the Fate of the Jedi series. So there's the first one in that series. All the covers are similar to this. I really like those covers. So you can go and look at that review if you like. I'll probably put a link for it in the description below, because I still don't know how to put a link within this video. But they're really taking these the story and the history and the characters and building a lot of stuff. And yeah, those are just supposed to be the history part, so I shouldn't get too deep into my thoughts yet. This is the most recent of the Star Wars books that I have, and it's the only hardback that I have right now. That's Maul, Lockdown, another Joe Schreiber. Not really horror, but still not your typical Star Wars. That's how the timeline looks. And it actually encompasses 3 pages. And as of the printing of this book, Crucible takes place 45 years after Star Wars A New Hope. So that's, at least as at the time of this printing, that's as far into the future, or as far ahead of Star Wars A New Hope that they've gone. Oh, and I wanted to say, where is it? Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void apparently takes place 25,793 years before Star Wars A New Hope. So they've gone way into the past, just a little bit into the future. So they're building on all of that. There's books based on the video games. I think there's at least one book based on one of the Dark Horse Comics series. A lot of stuff that takes place in and around the time of the prequels. I've read a little bit of that. Yeah, so just tons of stuff. And again, pardon me, I'm gonna get comfortable here. I've been leaning, and I'm gonna take another drink. Excuse me. Alright, so that's basically just a quick overview of the Star Trek books and the Star Wars books. So, my thoughts. We'll start again with the Star Trek books. The Star Trek books are entertaining. I believe there's got to be at least twice as many Star Trek books as there are Star Wars books. And as I said, I've barely read a fraction of that. And also, as I said, I'm concentrating right now on the original series. I grew up watching it, and as cheesy as some of the episodes were, there are some fantastic episodes written by some fantastic writers. And I'd like to see what today's fantastic writers are doing with those characters. But I think my favorite Star Trek books are the New Frontier series by Peter David. Now, Peter David is a comic book writer and a novelist. He's got a lot of his own original material, which is, a lot of it's hilarious. But he's written other stuff. I think other media tie-ins. Excuse me. I know he's written some original series books, some Next Generation books. But the New Frontier is the Star Trek series that he has written. 15 books or so. I'm not even sure how many there are in the series. One of the things I like about it, and this kind of goes back to something I was saying about Star Wars, is that it doesn't feature any of the main characters from any of the series. It's a lot of original characters. There are some characters from the shows. I believe one of the main characters in the New Frontier series, I know that. I don't believe that, I know that. One of the main characters in the series is Robin Leffler. I believe that's the character played by Ashley Judd in an episode of The Next Generation. So I think she was only in one episode. She's a main character in New Frontier. I love Peter David's writing. He goes from humor to pathos in a page. There are scenes that have me literally laughing out loud, and then just scenes of horrific tragedy that make me have to set the book down and just sort of walk away for a minute. His characters are fantastic. Whether it's his original characters or, again, small characters that were created in the TV show that he's just fleshed out. The New Frontier stories are epic. And his stories in Next Generation and original series are epic, and they're funny. And he incorporates a lot of things from the show in his Next Generation books. There's at least one, I want to say two, probably more, because I don't know that I've even read all of his, where he incorporates things from the original series into the Next Generation. So one of the things, and spoiler alert, I guess, in the original series there was an episode with a planet killer. If I recall correctly, it was like a big cornucopia in space, and it would just destroy planets. Well, in one of Peter David's Next Generation novels, it was discovered that this was a weapon created to fight the Borg. And I just thought that was great that he took that thing, and I don't know if they ever even tried to explain what the origins of the thing was in the original series. And he said, hey, this is what it is. And I can't remember if there was a second one in the Next Generation story, or if it was a time travel. I don't know. It's been a long time since I read it. But I like that he takes that and he incorporates different elements, and sometimes just little tiny things, and throws it into his books. So yeah, Peter David, fantastic. You should read anything the guy writes. His run on the Hulk was one of the best in my opinion. I loved it. And X Factor, which I think is the first thing I ever read by him. I think it was X Factor. Was fantastic. So I was going to mention this one again. A lot of the new stuff incorporates old stuff. As I said, this thing it's a crossover between original series and Voyager, in as much as 7 of 9 gets thrown into the past and ends up with Captain Kirk and the crew. But the adventure that they go on takes them into 3 stories from the original series TV show. And I believe all 3 times as they're traveling through time, I believe they end up in the story from the show before the events of the show, if that makes sense. I know in the one they definitely do. Just trying to remember. But either way, again, incorporates things from the original series into the book. Not all of them do that. A lot of it is standalone. You can just read the story, enjoy it. And Greg Cox, who wrote this one, does a lot of them. David Mack, I know he did the first in the new Seeker series. I believe he did the first in the new Seeker series. I don't know if he's doing all of them. Mirror Universe, of course, from the original series, Mirror Mirror, with Evil Spock. I haven't actually read this one yet. Looking forward to it. So, the Star Trek books are entertaining. They're generally, at least the ones that I've read, a little light. Just fun, adventurous. It's not, I like the characters. That's the whole point of me reading them, is because I like the characters. I wanted to revisit. The Star Trek The Next Generation books I've read have been good. I haven't read too many of the big event series. Like I said, there's The Fall. I know there's another one, Titan, maybe, that I haven't read. Dominion War I haven't read. But the stuff I have read has been good. It's been entertaining, which is the most important thing. I like that a lot of it ties in. I shouldn't even say a lot of it. Some of it ties into stuff from the shows. Glancing over now, my Star Wars books are over here. My Star Trek books are over that way. So I'm kind of glancing over there. I have a lot of them to read. So overall, the Star Trek books, very entertaining, at least the stuff that I've read. The Star Wars books, for the most part, have been incredibly entertaining. There is an author that I'm not thrilled with, and it's kind of put me off. One of the longer series, I mentioned Fate of the Jedi, which is a 9-book series. But leading up to that, that I haven't read is, let's see if I can find it. Print is so small. Well, there's the New Jedi Order. There's Legacy of the Force. I think Legacy of the Force is the one. That's another, looks like 9 books. And I've kind of been put off by that because 3 of them are written by Karen Traviss, who also writes the Republic Commando books. And I'm not a huge fan of her style. I think I'm going to have to get over that because I do want to read the other books. And I need to read hers because they're part of the whole. Most of the other authors I've read that have done Star Wars books I've enjoyed. Paul S. Kemp, I believe. I've picked up some of his non-Star Wars stuff because I enjoyed what he did in the Star Wars. The Star Wars. I like I said, I like a lot of the stuff that doesn't feature the main characters. There was a 2-book series called MedStar that I liked. It was kind of like MASH in the Star Wars universe. And that takes place, I think, during the Clone Wars. I picked up, there's a trilogy, or maybe more now, because I think it was originally a trilogy, but then they added a book or 2. The Jedi... the Coruscant Nights trilogy. Jedi Twilight's the first one. Takes place immediately after the Jedi Purge. Is that what we're going to call it in Revenge of the Sith? Which I picked up because it was sort of... it sounded like almost a Jedi private detective kind of thing. Not quite what it was. I've read the first of the 3. I enjoyed it. It was really good. But it wasn't quite. I was looking for more of a Jedi Philip Marlowe or Sam Spade, which was not the case with the first book, but still very good. And I like that. And just kind of looking at what there is, like I said. But with the Fate of the Jedi books now, I've gotten into the stuff that has the main characters. Since I'm I'm gonna try and pull it all in. I've avoided the prequel books, which maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'll get some good stuff out of that, because I do not like the prequel movies. So I've avoided the things that focus. I can't take Hayden Christensen's face on the cover of a book. He's in one of my favorite movies, Shattered Glass, but my God, he sucked in the Star Wars movies. And I know it's easy to bash those movies, but there's a reason it's easy to bash those movies. They're just not that good. So yes, I've avoided those books, but I think I'll probably have to pick some of those up. Well, I don't have to. I can do what I want. But I may break down and see if any of those are worth reading. I like the stuff. I like that they go so far back into the history of this universe, and we see the beginnings of the Jedi and the Sith. I have the Darth Bane trilogy. I haven't read it yet, but that's sort of. I think in Darth Bane it's where he sort of sets up the whole just a master and an apprentice thing. As far as the Sith go, just two Sith, because before that, they were like the Jedi. They were just all over the place, I believe. Again, limited experience here. Keep looking over there. So, the Star Wars books, like I said, you've got the timeline. I personally think they're all tied together much more tightly than the Star Trek books. They are. Yeah, there's crossover stuff. There's a lot of event stuff in the Star Trek books, but the Star Wars books are really tied tightly together. A lot of it almost seems similar to the Marvel movies, the Marvel Comics movies, where there's one guy, Kevin Feige, that kind of runs the whole show, so he has the big plan. So they all tie together pretty well. I don't know if there's one person in charge of the Star Wars novels, but they have that cohesiveness, and you don't have to read them all. I think with something like Fate of the Jedi, you do need to read all 9 books, and you need to read them in order, because that's one huge story, even though it's written by 3 people. But there are standalone books, or you can just read the X-Wing books and forget about the rest, or you can just read the short story collections or the Old Republic stuff. If you're a Star Wars fan, I think you're definitely going to find something you like in there. I think they're becoming a little more sophisticated than back when they first started. And I did read some of the other ones, some of the older ones that tied in a little more closely and had the main characters. I think it's Truce at Bakura that starts basically the very beginning of Truce at Bakura is the last 30 seconds of the second Death Star battle. At the end of Return of the Jedi. That's where that last bit of the battle, right before the second Death Star blows up, or maybe at the moment that it blows up, that's where the book starts. I think it's Truce at Bakura. And then it takes off from there. So they really tie together really well. And I read that a long time ago. I don't remember too much about it. So that's all I have to say about that, I guess. I was going to say, I think the newer books are a little better, but since I can't remember that much about that book, I guess it just didn't leave enough of a lasting impression. Maybe that's why I think the new ones are kind of getting a little better. But again, all very tightly woven. So in the end, I love Star Wars. I love Star Trek. I enjoy the Star Trek books, and I absolutely love the New Frontier books by Peter David. But in this battle of the books, the win goes to Star Wars, simply for the ever-expanding universe and rich history and the way everything ties together. Well, I'm gonna grab this and look at the timeline. And spoiler alert. Let's see if this has. Okay. So you've got about 3,650 years before Star Wars A New Hope, you have Lost Tribe of the Sith. 3,600 years before Star Wars A New Hope, you have the Lost Tribe of the Sith. And then, with this book, with this series, which is 43 years after Star Wars A New Hope, we're reintroduced to the Lost Tribe of the Sith, and they become a part of the greater current Star Wars universe. I just love that's a huge amount of time, and it all ties together. Excuse me again. All this talking is getting to me. Alright, this is definitely my longest video, and I've been yabbering on and on, but it's a lot to talk about. But in the end, as far as the books go, Star Wars wins out over Star Trek, in my opinion. Even though I've read more Star Trek books than the Star Wars, there are more Star Trek books than the Star Wars. I just think as a cohesive whole, the writing is a little more sophisticated, at least in what I've read. The Star Wars books win. The one analogy that I would make, and I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me, Star Wars, I would compare to Marvel. The Star Trek I would compare to DC. Personally, I like the writing in Marvel Comics better. I think everything's more cohesive. Not always. I mean, they've been around for so long, and in the 90s, pretty much most comic books were pretty bad. Oh, they did some horrible things. But anyway, but I've always found Marvel to be a little more sophisticated, a little more cohesive, and that's what I like about the Star Wars books. That's why they've got the edge over the Star Trek books. DC Comics has the real archetype characters, and yes, it's a cohesive universe, but to me it's never had that real solidity that Marvel had, and that's what I get from the Star Trek novels. I enjoy them. They're great fun, but they're a little lighter, just in general, than the Star Wars books. Not that there aren't light moments in the Star Wars books too. Again, huge generalizations. I've only read a limited number of these books, but that's my impression at this point. So, in the battle of the books, Star Wars, I'm trying to find, Star Wars beats out Star Trek. Luke Skywalker, well, Captain Kirk could probably take out Luke Skywalker, but as far as the books go, Star Wars is the winner. So, normally I'd post a link to whatever book I was reviewing, but I'm not going to post hundreds and hundreds of links. So, I'm sure everybody's smart enough to find these books on their own if they want to look for them. Let's see, I will put a link to my review of the Fate of the Jedi series. I will put a link to my review of Maul Lockdown. because those are the 2 Star Wars reviews I've done. Haven't done any Star Trek reviews yet. I think that's it for links. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, if you want to yell at me, tell me I made the wrong choice, if you just want to discuss the different books, all of that can go in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I think that covers it. So until next time, read more books.